When you play the Game of Thrones, you
Subscribe and like.
or you die. There is no middle ground.
Alright, hello YouTube, welcome back to the Grease Goblins YouTube channel. In today's video, we're going to be talking about a topic that has been very heavily debated within my community, the Song of Ice and Fire community as a whole, and all of that. So it is going to be about, was the Purple Wedding actually supposed to kill Joffrey or Tyrion? And if it was meant to kill Joffrey, how did that actually happen? Was it because of the pie? Was it because of the wine? There's a lot of factors that go into this. If you look at the whole situation, we have to look at chapters in the past to describe the Strangler. We have to look at the build up to the chapter and even the Sansa chapter after to really piece together what exactly happened. And we're not even sure exactly what really could have happened here because it's from Littlefinger and Sansa, not the most reliable sources. So we're also going to have to look at George R.R. Martin's own phrasing on what actually happened there and the actual culprit. So before we get into the video, if you guys like to like, subscribe, and comment, please do. It helps share and encourage your people that might like this content as well. And let's get into the video. So the first idea here that I want to talk about is, what does the Strangler do? The Strangler is the poison that is used on Joffrey. And for that, we're going to have to go back to the first chapter of A Clash of Kings with Cresson. He actually does describe what the poison does. So I'm going to read a little bit of a passage from that chapter, and we can kind of just see what its actual definition and use is. Cresson no longer recalled the name the Ashai gave the leaf or the Lyonese poisoners the crystal. In the Citadel, it was simply called the Strangler. Dissolved in wine, it would make the muscles of a man's throat clench tighter than any fist, shutting off his windpipe. They said a victim's face turned as purple as the little crystal seed from which his death was grown, but so too did a man choking on a morsel of food. So this is basically setting up exactly what ends up happening to Joffrey. It's the exact same scenario where his face turns purple. It looks like he's choking, but he's not. So basically what this is doing is it's kind of setting up what is to come with the Purple Wedding. Now let's also talk about another key point here, is that it's specifically noted here that it is used with dissolving wine. It's not used for being put in food. So that's a key point, because I've seen this from a lot of people that they have suggested that it was actually Tyrion's pie that actually could have been what was poisoned. It makes a bit more sense because when Joffrey starts eating Tyrion's pie, the effects are then immediate, right? So the question then becomes, okay, leading into this chapter and looking at motivations and all these things, does it make sense for Littlefinger and Olenna to kill Tyrion or Joffrey? So we also have to take into account that what Littlefinger tells us to Sansa, right? So Littlefinger just kind of implies that someone messed with your hairnet at some point, correct? And Sansa comes to her own conclusions. Littlefinger doesn't say Olenna did it at any point here. He kind of lets Sansa figure something out and then kind of just goes with it. So we're not exactly sure if Littlefinger is telling us the truth about what happened or not. So again, we're going to go back, we're going to read the passage, and we're going to kind of figure it out. Peter smiled. I will wager you that at some point during the evening, someone told you that your hairnet was crooked and straightened it for you. Sansa raised a hand to her mouth. You cannot mean. She wanted to take me to Highgarden to marry me to her grandson. Gentle, pious, good-hearted Willis Tyrell. Be grateful you were spared. He would have bored you spitless. The old woman is not more boring, though. I'll grant her that. A fearsome old harridan, I guess that's how you say that word, and not near as frail as she pretends. When I came to Highgarden to dicker for Marjorie's hand, she let her lord's son bluster while she asked pointed questions about Joffrey's nature. I praised him to the skies, to be sure, whistle my men spread disturbing tales amongst Lord Tyrell's servants. That is how the game is played. So again, what Littlefinger does here is he sets up the question for Sansa to assume it was the Tyrells. And then what Littlefinger does is kind of say a couple things implying that Olenna was already very worried about who Joffrey was as a character, right? And this could all be true. This all does make sense in Olenna's character. But if we look at other things surrounding that, why would Olenna trust Littlefinger? She's a very good judge of character. why would she trust Littlefinger? Was it a situation where she wasn't exactly trusting him, but it was kind of a mutual benefit thing where she could see how he would benefit and she benefited as well? Maybe it was one of those type of things. We're not exactly sure. And the worst part of it is we haven't seen Olenna Tyrell since this point. We have not like heard from her. We haven't had dialogue with her. So it's very difficult to kind of see what her reaction to this was, right? So let's continue on with the actual wedding. Now, this is something that I think is very interesting that George did not include, because if you really look at it, this could actually be a major plot hole. Because if we look at how the wedding goes, so this all kind of kicks off when there's the jousters. Now, this is set up by Littlefinger that we know, and Littlefinger kind of does this to, one, paint attention to Tyrion, and two, we're assuming to create some sort of conflict between the two. So my thing here would be, if they were trying to kill Tyrion, why would they draw attention to Tyrion? That's the wrong way to do it, because then it'd be much harder to poison something that is right in front of the person where all the attention is at, right? And why I think this was used is because this is a misdirection, right? A lot of the attention goes to Tyrion. It gives Olenna some chance where a lot of the people in the room are focused on this and wouldn't maybe notice something as slick as her putting poison in something, right? So we have this idea where Joffrey has his chalice. He dumps it on Tyrion. Now, this is the key part, right? So the chalice is then, kicked under the table, and Tyrion basically is made like the cupbearer. He puts the chalice, he refills it, Joffrey takes a little drink of it, and he's fine. He then sets the chalice on the table. Now, this is key because we know that the chalice is within arm's reach of Tyrion. But we're also told at the very beginning of the chapter that Tyrion wasn't very close to where Joffrey was sitting. Like, he was kind of the farthest at the end of the dais as basically possible, right? He was next to Garland Tyrell and all that. So the idea here is the chalice is actually not near where Joffrey and Marjorie was. And we know this because when Joffrey comes back, Joffrey picks up the chalice that was still like laying there. So again, very key to understand. So the question becomes, where was Olenna sitting at on this dais? And the answer is we don't know. It's one of the big mysteries. If you want to look at trying to figure out where everyone was sitting, right? We know that the Tyrells, for the most part, were sitting together. We know that Marjorie was then sitting next to her mother and her father, it would appear, on like maybe her side of it, and then maybe her cousins. I'm not sure if the cousins were actually on the dais or not. It just says, like, Tyrion just starts describing the cousins after he describes Marjorie's mother. So we're assuming that maybe the Tyrells are together, but this isn't confirmed. We just know that Marjorie's mom and dad are kind of together. We have no mention of Olenna. We don't know where Olenna is in the dais. We know that Garland and his wife are next to Tyrion and Sansa on the right side. Correct? So the question is, where is the Lannister family? So we have Tywin, Cersei, and presumably Tommen. We don't know where they are on the dais. I would assume they're on the side next to Joffrey. So the big question here is, where is Olenna? And we don't know. So this whole idea changes if it's kind of like, on one side, it's like Tyrion, Sansa, you have Garland, his wife, and then maybe Olenna. And then right there, and then you have Olenna there. That would make a bit of sense, because the problem becomes, we know because of past foreshadowing and the way that the pie is poisoned, but not Tyrion's wine, because Joffrey, remember, does not drink Tyrion's wine. So what would have had to, if you're saying it was targeted to kill Tyrion, it was in the pie, which would kind of contradict what we've heard about the poison before. So the only wine that Joffrey drinks is his own in the chalice. So the chalice's location at this point is somewhere, presumably, if you're looking at the dais, to the left of Tyrion. But enough to where when he goes back up, because again, he gets out of his seat, he was going to leave with Sansa to kind of clean up. He has to get back onto his seat and then leans over, and then he gets it. So it's within arm reach. So the question is, how does Olenna, who is someone that needs a cane, able to poison it? And this is where a lot of questions arise, because I'm like 99% sure the wine goblet is what gets Joffrey. Based upon the passage we talked about earlier with Crescent on how it's supposed to be dissolved in wine, as well as there's a lot of attention drawn to this chalice. Like, we know where this chalice's location is pretty much at all times. And poisoning the pie just doesn't make any sense if you're going to try and like kill Joffrey. But then at the same time, you wouldn't, if you were going to kill Tyrion, you would have put it in his wine. So that's the problem with the scenario of, was Tyrion the target? The question that arises, though, is, was Littlefinger lying about how everything actually occurred? Because he kind of leads Sansa to the answer, but we don't know if that's the actual answer. And the second problem is, we really have no idea where Olenna was sitting on the dais, and we don't know her relative location to the chalice. Did she have someone plant the poison, which doesn't seem like something Olenna would do? Or was it something that she was actually pretty close to the chalice, we just didn't know where she was? It's something that I think is a little interesting when you really analyze the chapter, because it's something that we talked about on stream today, so this is why I kind of did this video right after. I want to do some research, is that there's actually a lot of mystery and or questions about it. Now, we do know, and this is what I was talking about with George R.R. Martin and bringing in his part of this, he has said that it was Olenna that killed Joffrey. So unless you believe that George was lying about that, which I don't think so. George has usually been, if there's been some sort of mystery, he would just avoid answering the question. He wouldn't say anything. Unless you just think he's flat out lying for some reason, which I don't know why he would do that. It's pretty much confirmed that it was Olenna. The question is, how did she do it? Because logically, if you look at where the chalice was and a lot of other logical things, I also don't think, okay, this is another thing. I don't think Olenna would have had a baker or something specifically poison Tyrion's thing, because that's a big thing to be trusting like a random baker or a server to be poisoning something for you. I think it makes the most amount of sense for Olenna to somehow poison the goblet, but we're just not sure how. And I wonder if that'll ever get expanded upon. Like in the show, we find out specifically, and Olenna admits that she did it, right? She tells Jaime as, you know, she's dying, one of the only good scenes of season 7, that she did it and like how she kind of did it. I hope we get a scene with Olenna, like one more, like, you know, scene with Olenna where she kind of says how she did it, because there seems like there's something missing from the execution of the plan. But I don't know. What do you guys think about this? Do you guys still believe it was the pie? I think with with the evidence I've maybe shown in the video and the passages I've read, it very much appears it is a wine thing with the strangler poison. So I think you really have to point to it being the wine, and Joffrey only drinks his chalice. So I don't know what you guys think about this. Let me know what you guys think. I know it's been a very kind of divisive topic within my own community, but let me know down in the comments, what do you guys think?
If you think this has a happy ending, you haven't been paying attention.